And just looking at his face, Davo, I wish everyone in the world, every single viewer of this podcast can feel an nth of that joy that must have surged through Declan Rice's veins in that moment. It was
I
more
wish
than a
I'd
goal.
seen. I wish I'd seen Roy Keane's face in that moment, having implored him to score more goals. The fact he does it against Man United is just classic. From the Men in Blazers studios in the crap part of Bedford and from the crap part of the South Fork of Long Island, it's the Men in Blazers video podcast presented by the GFOPs at Camarena, the most awarded tequila.
We back like the Colorado Buffaloes, baby. A weekend, hat tricks. For the first time since 1995, 3 different players scored hat tricks on the very same day in the Premier League. We will get to it all. Everton even scored a big boy goal. But how are you doing, David?
Yeah, so many goals this weekend, Roger. It was almost like a parallel universe because when I got up this morning and prepared for this pod, it seemed like the results were completely different. Honestly, I'm pretty sure that Brentford beat Bournemouth at the weekend. And then this morning I woke up and realised it was a draw. It's like everything, sometimes the games change. We're not podding till Tuesday morning. And everything's changed since the weekend, I believe.
We've always said when you watch football on Telemundo, it always seems like there's 9 times the goals scored. This weekend in the Premier League was like that no matter what channel you were watching. And it was seemingly magnificent. But Davo, we are a day late talking about all of this. A lot of football to get to post-Labour Day. But summer's over. Fall is upon us. How do you feel emotionally in that pivot, David? Because I know you feel the seasons. Do you feel a sadness about all that's been lost? Or do you feel like an excitement, an optimism, a surging joy about the falling leaves, the hiking weather? What George Eliot wrote about when she said, is this not a true autumn day? Just the still melancholy that I love, which makes life and nature harmonise. I think George Eliot sounds like an Everton fan.
I'm reminded of that New Yorker cartoon, Rog, where the guy is sitting across from a woman at dinner and he says, "Oh, but enough about me. What do you think about my book?" Because I know this is really just a setup for you to talk about cardigan weather and how much you like the approaching colder days.
I love all seasons.
Damp, all those kind of things. You're not a summer person. Davo, I think summer would be a Davo season. Fall, winter, those are more Rog seasons. In my code, Rog, and I've said this before, summer, I divide the year into 4 equal seasons, whatever the meteorologists say. And summer is July, August, September. Fall, October, November, December. Winter, January, February, March. And spring, April, May, June. So I'm still okay for another month. The US Open tennis is still going on. Shout out to Billie Jean King, 50 years of pay equity at the US Open, which is a remarkable tribute to that woman. And so I've still got another few weeks of summer, Rod. So I'm not accepting it's over yet.
I love summer. Without summer, there is no seersucker. And without seersucker, there is
no
life. There's no essence. There's no meaning. There's no being. But I do adore every single season equally. They all just fill me with a sense of joy. I do love the fall. I do, I mean, without cardigans, am I even a person? Am I just a tree falling in an empty forest without my cardigan collection, which I can dust off now? I love to walk Martin Scorsese in the forest. I love to watch football. I love to read a book. I love to raise a glass inside. I do realise the thing I love about fall is that you have no guilt for being inside, which is I think important. An inside guilt-free life, IGFL is really, that's a life I want to live, David.
I've got to check my Collins German to English dictionary and find the German word for that. I'm sure there is an inside guilt-free life. That inside guilt-free feeling that accompanies the coming of autumn. Okay, Rog, before we get to the football, and there's a lot of it, and it changed over the last few days, a quick shout out for everything happening at Men in Blazers World Headquarters this week. And we're reporting for international duty. Yes, the Premier League is on a break. This ridiculous first break. I don't like this first break. I've never liked this first break. But we've got so much happening at Men in Blazers World Headquarters involving the US men's national team. It is not to be missed. Interviews with Matt Turner, Anthony Robinson, Jedi, and Brandon Vasquez are all on the docket this week. Do not miss it. Also, look for complete coverage of the USA in our newsletters, American States United and The Raven, which fly Wednesday and Friday, respectively. Subscribe at meninblazers.com. Football don't sleep, and neither do you, Roger.
Davo, football don't sleep would actually be an incredible tagline for a daily football news podcast. One that delivers all your global football news straight from the back pages of the glorious European newspapers in a single daily 10-minute listen. If only someone would start one.
Yeah, but no one would be mad enough to do such a thing, Roger. It would just take so much work. Anyway, but good luck to whoever tries it, Rog. Before I let you act on any ideas, can we get a toast?
Oh, I do want to raise a third first Bud Light of the day to Lionel Messi, who this weekend went into Los Angeles and delivered glory for worse to kind of playing like first into Miami at that cauldron of LAFC, that jewel box near your gaff, Davo. And he swept in front of really an Oscar ceremony's worth of A-listers, including the Lesser Leo, DiCaprio, Prince Harry, a mouth wide open Selena Gomez, and Rage Against the Machine, who on the guest list were just noted as Rage Against the Machine, which made me worried that the whole band had to squeeze their little bottoms onto just one seat. 3-1, the arse slapping that was handed out by Inter Miami, who are now just 8 points off the playoffs with 2 games in hand. Though they will miss Messi for at least the next game as he's on international duty. Damn you, international duty. Watching Messi in the immediate aftermath of the game, yucking it up with Owen Wilson, who was just reduced, overawed, just to a super fan himself when you meet the demigod Lionel Messi. It was a beautiful human thing to witness, as was the sight of DiCaprio sucking on a lollipop at an MLS game. These are surreal days, Dave, in which football, or Messi really, has become a must-see phenomenon. The only things I can think of that are up there where the superstars are so shameless in their giddiness is like a Beyonce concert, a Taylor Swift show. Christian Pulisic on his Insta stories last night posted a photo of Selena Gomez gobsmacked with the caption, let them, meaning the celebrities, know they're invited to watch US national team games too. A reminder, as the US do gather again for this week for 2 games, starting Saturday night against Uzbekistan, Cinque, that for so long, MLS has lagged behind the US national team in terms of popularity. Messi, he's really changed everything. He's stretched the sense of exactly what football can be in this nation, and we're all the better for it.
Absolutely. I'm reminded, Rog, watching the US Open this weekend and seeing the number of celebrities who are going out and watching Coco Gauff and Tiafoe and Ben Shelton and these amazing group of American young tennis players coming out and celebrities studded all over the place, rooting for the Americans. And as you know, I'm not American, but I like seeing the celebs turn out for our top players. It's a good thing, Roger.
Well, they're not going out to watch any top players there. They're going out to see Deandre Yedlin in this case. And it is spectacular, honestly, to witness.
Okay, Rog, to the football. Arsenal 3, Manchester United 1, a classic Premier League rivalry that actually lived up to its billing. 2 English deities, desperate to reassert themselves, come out like Greek gods, chucking lightning bolts at each other, and it was Manchester United who struck first against the run of play. Who else? Marcus Rashford, MBE, who put the visitors ahead, banking one off the post and in. But as they've shown time and time again, this Arsenal team is happy to take a punch, and then they hit back just the very next minute via captain Martin Odegaard. Then, at the very end, United looked like they pocketed all 3 points via a goal from Alejandro Garnacho, but not so fast. Thanks to some type of Pilates move known as the Gabrielle, the goal was called back, and then it was Arsenal who snatched the win with big summer signing Declan Rice driving home the winner, and Gabriel Jesus adding a third late for insurance, and Arsenal head into the international break unbeaten with 3 wins in 4 games.
God, 2 teams, big in name. So far this season, small in performance. Both had won, yes, 2 of their first 3 games, but Arsenal's football had appeared constantly over complex, and United's midfield remains really confounding. It's one of football world's most expensive works that's perpetually in progress. The squad now undermined by a rash of injuries. Varane now out, joining Shaw, Mount, Malacia. And they began in their weird away dark green kit, Dave. It looked like a terribly made, clearly fake Newcastle kit that you kind of buy for your kid because you've only got a couple of bucks in your pocket. And the early exchanges Arsenal looked to tear into United, prove themselves almost to themselves after that terrible dip against 10-man Fulham. United continued to struggle to find any kind of rhythm. Disgruntled Anthony Martial, probably even more shocked than you were that he was on the field. It's hard to believe, watching United, they spent all of this cash. They have spent cash. And yet they still seem like a team with massive holes all over the bloody show. 13-minute, Arsenal cut open, the panic United rear guard, ball drops to Kai Havertz, which is really at this point German for dead tooth. Goal at his mercy. The time itself seemed to slow down. I screamed at my television, go on, Kai, do it. Don't just do it for yourself, do it for us. We don't like human misery. Be the bloody hero. Instead, he just Timo Wernered it, totally whiffed. And if you looked at the bottom of the screen, I think I'm pretty clear scientifically you could see the puddle of his own bleeding self-confidence all around his feet. David, you are a Kai Havertz whisperer. You know him from your Chelsea days. Is it true that the MLS Skills Challenge broke the man?
Could be. Because once again, we're talking about a guy who scored the winner in a Champions League final, Rog. An amazing finish. 1-on-1 with the keeper. A goal that takes supreme nerve and ability to do in the biggest arena at the biggest moment of your entire career. So we know he's got it in him. We know he's done that. So it could have been the MLS Skills Challenge. It could have been, the double-fisted wanker signs, which he's seen pretty, consistently over the last 3 years, all up and down Britain. But yeah, this was even, I was thinking of I almost feel that was an insult to Timo Werner, who at least would score his best goals or miss them from offside positions, Rog. He didn't even make
he would.
contact.
You're right.
He didn't even make contact.
Timo would have somehow maneuvered his whole body into an offside position, then finished deliriously, celebrated it, and then humiliated himself that way. But United were second to everything. Declan Rice relishing the fight. Arsenal pouncing on every second ball, looking to stick it right down United's throats. But football is a mad, mad game. And Havertz, of course it was him, misjudged the pass in that midfield. United broke. Ericsson, fed Rashford with a stunning weight ball. And you smelt the goal. The second Rashford's cut inside, was it like 3 defenders? You just knew he was going to lash that ball. Ramsdale, I think, got a hand to it. Do I need to say? Matt Turner would have saved that. And completely against the run of play. Gobsmack sucker punch. United 1-0. Magnificent.
Yeah, and the thing is, Ben White tried to show him the outside. He tried to have him go down the outside. Well, the inside wasn't even available to him. And he cut inside and, hit it perfectly. Ramsdale did get a hand to it. Still was well hit enough to make it into the back of the net. And very much against the run of play, United go 1-0 ahead.
Some response, though, 90 seconds later. We always say you can judge a team by how they respond to adversity, almost straight from the kickoff. Zinni and Ketcher, Martinelli exchanging passes. Martinelli then slapping the ball across to Odegaard, who'd been calling for it almost before Martinelli received it. He needed no second invitation. Absolutely battered a pinpoint shot into the corner. Panic over. And it just lasted a minute and a half. And for all their dominance, Arsenal, at halftime, Davo, they had the same number of goals. They had the same number of shots on goal, 1. As their opponent. And it is fascinating watching them. They had a lot of the ball. They had a lot of possession. But it's a dominance that they savour that it's been the motif of this season. They've not converted it into anything truly meaningful.
Yeah, it's tough for me to comment on almost any of these things you're saying about either team because when we get to Chelsea later in the pod, they are so much worse in every single area. But yes, and yet that dominance, and it's a searching, insightful, probing dominance that eventually wears teams down. And so I see some point to their football. I see some point to the beauty. It doesn't feel like overplaying. It doesn't feel ludicrous. And yet, after halftime, and maybe just before halftime as well, the game was, we were watching 2 Premier League giants going at each other, and it was very, very equal. After it went 1-1, we saw great equality from these teams, both in the 15 minutes before the break and the 15 minutes after.
Second half, as you say, United began to defend with a grim determination that was very ununited in their attack self-image, which we're faintly holding on to. But it was impressive in its own right. Arsenal trying to flick and fate, but still being held at arm's length. It was really an optimistic stalemate for them, filled with a Dallo masterclass. Aaron Wan-Bissaka flying into one tackle after another, one too many, as it turned out, as he and Havertz did the Lambada dangerous dance of death into the area. And Havertz, I screamed, let the Havertz redemption cycle begin, taking a tumble. It looked like a clip in the moment, but upon closer VAR, you could make the case, and VAR did, that Havertz initiated lifting his leg into AWB. And I think it being Havertz, which is German for Eeyore at this point, Davo. Anthony Taylor, many of you Arsenal fans thought he was a Manchester United player in this moment. They howled all game about Anthony Taylor. VAR overruled that penalty. What did you see?
I mean, I think there's a real issue with VAR constantly looking at all these things in slow motion. You look at that in real speed, and for everything in the world, that looks like a penalty. And the game is played in real speed, and little chops, two players coming together against you, which is they were both closing the gap for him. That felt like a penalty for him. But in slow motion, I agree, it starts to look very different. But that's not the momentum. That changes everything, seeing that in slow motion. So I don't know. I kind of thought that that it felt like a penalty in real speed. I'm amazed that that the VAR overturned the decision on the field. So, but there it is. This is a game of inches.
United then threw on a couple of significant subs. Rasmus Højlund came on for his Manchester United debut. Actually looked lively, right? Took a lovely slap to the face from Casemiro early and seemed unafraid. And then Harry Maguire came on to replace the injured Martinez. Two sarcastic, rapturous applause from the Arsenal fans. God, I've got to say, it was humanly terrifying to witness. But it was also exciting too, watching Maguire come on. Like, suddenly you realise that dude was definitely going to score the winner. And the only suspense would be, whose net would it be in? 35-year-old Johnny Evans soon joined him. United, that world-class brand, unleashing a backline ripped straight from the best exotic Marigold hotel. I mean, you do look, again, another anathema of the United. That squad, Davo, again, as I said earlier, so much money spent on it, but Arsenal were flinging on young, live, fast bodies. United's squad is so bloody thin that they're almost exhuming these players down the stretch.
Well, going back into the market for Johnny Evans was a really remarkable move. I mean, that's not an older guy who sat on their books for a while. He was on their books. He sat on his books for a while, then left, and now they've brought him back. So yeah, that felt a little odd. They definitely felt towards the end of the game that Arsenal were gonna ask them a lot of questions, keep on coming. And remember, we've got this new Premier League. We live in a new space-time continuum, Roger, where games last 15, 16 minutes more longer than they used to. And so there's a lot more time for Man United to defend.
Yeah, then a haunting moment for Arsenal fans. Haunting moment ultimately too for United fans. They'd seen Arsenal fans, their team, down that stretch in crucial parts of the season. They've seen their team wilt. They've seen a team find a way to throw away games in the run-in. And it was haunting to witness. Front of mind, that would have been Garnacho, really a sizzling. I can only describe it. It was almost like a full length of the field jailbreak. It was essentially a kick return, wasn't it, David?
Yeah, sort of. I don't know what you're referring to as being haunting. I imagine you're referring to Garnacho's haircut, which is like it's not easy to look at.
Man's taken a photo of Anthony Gordon into his barbers and said, "I want that. I want that road crash, whatever it is. That tragedy paint my head, Gordon-esque colour." I mean, it was amazing. It was a clinical gobsmack of a finish. A minuscule VAR offside. You see, Arsenal fans, Anthony Taylor does still love you. It was amazing to watch Gabriel, I think it was, do almost like a rockaway to get himself within a toe of the offside line. You always say, David, football is a game of minuscule difference, and that was just the sliding doors moment of the entire game.
It really, really was. Commentators, caught off by that as well. They thought he looked onside. I admit I looked at it and I thought he looked onside. then the lines get drawn. Where exactly are the lines drawn from? Are the lines drawn from the end of his head, or was it which felt further forward than his shoulder at that point? I don't know. But in the end, he's offside. The goal doesn't count. You have that amazing celebratory moment for the away fans, which is taken away. It all seems so wrong, Roger. And the boost. It's not just the momentum shift of the goal being disallowed and what that does to Man United. It's just suddenly the Arsenal fans, they're just like pumped up with energy. It's almost better than not having conceded an offside goal at all to have that happen.
God, it's like 4 weddings and a funeral. 1 minute, you're just a happy, large, curly-haired man in a kilt dancing at a wedding. Oh, the next, spoiler alert that movie for you, but that's what happened to United fans. All of that joy, suddenly, total cardiac into 8 minutes of added time. This is the new rules, and it tested everyone. Players all over the field, really flailing, falling over, grabbing limbs, shattered. And just when it looked like the big winner of this game was going to be Manchester City, 6 minutes into time added on, corner, everyone fatigued. Saka, big air corner, and Declan Rice. By the way, Declan Rice, dude had cramped down the stretch. He had just been in agony. He'd been everywhere in the first 90 minutes. The second 90 minutes, even he fatigued. And God, watching him strain every sinew, Davo, to control it on the chest. It was just epic chesting, right? It was Fellaini black belt level chesting. How he does his body exhausted. You'll only know this from the gym. I don't push myself. I see limits vaguely on the horizon physically, so I don't really know where they are. But even just the stretching, never mind the shot, which we'll get to, but that stretching, that was just an epic human being, utterly shattered, pushing himself well beyond his limits, right?
If you've ever cramped up at any point playing any sport, the one thing you know is you can sort of make it a little bit better, but it never goes away. You can never get rid of cramp. It is there. Once you've started cramping, your whole body moves in a completely different way.
My way.
So yeah, suddenly we all become Roger in that moment. But it's Declan Rice, this is a player who, by his own admission, has not scored enough goals, has not found enough ways in his career to affect the outcome of games beyond just his running around and intercepting passes. He made a huge moment. And this was a huge moment for Declan Rice and Arsenal. Bigger than the fact that it was against Man United, bigger than the fact that it was a goal scored deep into entry time. It was the fact that it was this player. There is no player they would rather this be. It's even better than Havertz scoring this goal at the end. This was just superb for Arsenal and Arsenal fans.
He brought it down. He joked later with his chin. And then just slammed it home off Johnny Evans' heel. United fans frustrated that Johnny Evans held on a corner in very corner grapple ways by Gabriel, I think it was. Onana despairing dive. And then watching Declan Rice just reel away into the corner, embracing the Arsenal fans. I mean, man had been in a war and survived and lived to be the hero. The joy that must have flowed through his veins in that moment as he just took in just that collective moment of wonder, really seized it all. He said later that, he's fully aware of the legacy of this team, the heritage of this game, the big players who played in, what it means to the fans. He's also aware that Roy Keane on Sky Television said he needs to score more goals. He needs to score bigger goals. And just looking at his face, Davo, I wish everyone in the world can feel an nth. Every single viewer of this podcast can feel an nth of that joy that must have surged through Declan Rice's veins in that moment. It was more than a goal.
I wish I'd seen Roy Keane's face in that moment, having implored him to score more goals. The fact he does it against Man United is just classic. Yeah, I mean, the video posted at Men in Blazers was just superb, taken from a fan's cell phone in the right behind the goal. And as right in the area where Declan Rice runs toward, and Declan's joy, his the whole stadium's joy, his teammates' joy, Bukayo Saka running past, jumping right, almost mounting an old man in row 3.
It was amazing.
It was so good. But
that was amazing. It was just like, I am going to hump you. I want you to remember this moment, old man, who's been coming to the game for decades, as a moment that I, Bukayo Saka, hump you. And it was just delirious. I felt sorry for, honestly, anyone that doesn't like football in that moment, because to watch this, unless you're a Manchester United fan, was to feel alive. And what a moment for Rice to begin to write your name into club law in that fashion, to deliver a late goal, which, funny enough, used to be the purview of Manchester United in their title-winning days. Jesus then added one in garbage time on the break, sitting down a desperate sliding Dalot and the keeper before finishing, and suddenly mood change of the most severe kind for both teams. Life lesson number one, listeners, the Arsenal fans streaming out of the Emirates early, who'd missed all of this, never ever leave a game early and deprive yourself of memories that will last a lifetime. But more than anything, that win, I mean, that was it. That could have been 1-1, a deflating 1-1. Questions asked. Arteta's meant to win now. I mean, just the narrative, the headlines that in that international break every day would have been dumped on Arsenal. They do not have them. It was a narrative game changer. My friend Arsblog captured that feeling for Arsenal, that flip, that deep emotional crescendo, when he tweeted, there was a point where during that game, I decided I'd hated football, but all caps, now I effing love it.
Oh, amazing stuff. I mean, yeah, I mean, we have seen Arsenal do this. I mean, over the last season, they've managed to win a lot of games right at the end. This becomes, at a certain point, it's not luck, Rog. It's the way you're coached, it's the way you're playing, it's your team effort, it's the pressure you put on your opponents again and again and again. Closing out games is a huge skill. And I just do think that there's something special that goes on between those players and that manager.
It's so true. Jonas Eidval, Arsenal women's coach, who joins a lot during the Women's World Cup, it's one of the pieces of wisdom he gave us, a structure that I've thought a lot about. He said, the manager's purview is less the starting 11. It's more knowing who his or her finishing 11 is going to be. And we saw that on this day. But Manchester United, my God, the agony of thinking you'd scored a late delirious winner, only to concede twice, even later, and to lose on the road again against a Big Nine team again. I think they picked up 1 point out of 24 possible last season, and to leave only with just defeat at the death. Ten Hag left complaining about the referee on three things: the call against him on Garnacho, which was a legit offside. You can't ask for another more flattering camera angle. The penalty not given against Højlund, which Højlund didn't even ask for in the moment. And then the hold on Evans at the end, which is arguable, but really run-of-the-mill, argy-bargy in Premier League penalty area. The lack of he's trying to deflect from that lack of ability that his team have to impose themselves in big games, to force the agenda, to force the style of play, to have a game plan. Ultimately, United, their game plan under Ten Hag, who I do admire as a change agent, but it's got to evolve from just being pragmatic to try and nick the game in moments, which they almost did. But that's not enough for United fans. It's not enough for the squad spend. It's not enough to pass muster as convincing Manchester United football, is it?
You know what? I could argue that side very easily, Roger. And 49% of me wants to argue that side, but 51% of me thinks that it's worth taking the other side in this case. We do have a tendency in football to always make the team that wins, and we say all the amazing things about them, and the team that loses, oh, they're awful. You know what? Two things can be possible at the same time, in that Arsenal can be really good. Man United can also play really well and get a little bit unlucky, which I think they did get a little bit unlucky. Yes, teams deserve luck, and they earn luck over time through effort and through management and all these things. But Man United asked a lot of questions of Arsenal at the Emirates in this game. Man United, still with these injury problems, with some of these old players who they're bringing out, they still are finding ways with the quality of their individuals to do things. Rashford made a move down the byline towards the end of the game with that little, fake, that amazing move he does with his right foot, that he manages to take the ball on his right foot and get past the player on the defender's right side, on the byline side down there, which is just amazing. Rashford felt a little bit reborn in this game for me. And they have so many players who can hurt you. I thought Eriksen was superb. I thought Wan-Bissaka was superb. And they still are a very good team. I wouldn't be despairing Man United fans for losing this game. And then one other point, these let's face it, these 8 minutes of injury time, these huge numbers we're seeing across the league, this is just a stepping stone to there being a a stop clock managed across football. It's just a stepping stone. It's not going to last. It's too insane, these amounts of times we're seeing added to the game. I think we're just, perhaps a year or two away from experimenting with something very different in football.
God. And the executive officer of Hublot welcomes those comments. I will say, I need to postscript United by just talking about the deep feeling of almost chaos around the club, which deepens day by day. Sancho and Ten Hag engaging in a public Cold War. The manager saying the 23-year-old has not tried in training. The player taking to social media to say that's not true. I've become a scapegoat for the club. Coupled with the ongoing drip of the sale of the club. With the story breaking over the weekend in the Daily Mail that the Glazers are planning to hold on to their ownership after all this until at least 2025, which I actually believe there's a possibility that's still just them negotiating and hoping to extract what they want from Qatar, which is enormous, silly money. And then the truly sour note that we have to mention, United, who on deadline day led to Mason Greenwood's loan to Getafe, Spanish team, who are giving him a second chance, yes, but actually seem to be reveling in the attention that they're receiving in taking a player who hasn't played football competitively since December 2021 after he was arrested on suspicion of a number of offences, including attempted rape, only to have the charges dropped after a key witness withdrew. Keyboard warriors, just to be clear, that's not the same thing as being found innocent. They now have a second massive case to begin to grapple with after the Brazilian national team dropped Antony in the wake of allegations in the Brazilian media outlet UOL by his former girlfriend, Gabriela Cavalin, of physical assault, threats of murder. This article actually is accompanied by really gruesome graphic images of violence. Antony has put out a statement acknowledging that his relationship with Cavalin was, quote, tumultuous, but insisted that the accusations are false. And United now must be braced internally to have to go again. And please, Lord, may they learn the lessons of how to handle this from the first time round.
Okay, now to the team that Arsenal and Man United and everybody else are all chasing. I think they're referred to as the greatest team on the planet. Manchester City 5. Arguably the best team in West London, Fulham 1. Goals from Julian Alvarez, Nathan Ake, and a second half Erling Haaland hat-trick see the defending champs to the third power, maybe more than that, cruise against the struggling Cottagers. All that is well and good. But what we prefer to focus on in this one is the Tim Ream wonder strike. He had a lot to do, Rod. He had a lot to do. He still had a lot to do. Yeah. An absolute blast from way downtown that put the game into question. Right, Rog?
Mate, it was the best. You name a better goal scored by a Men in Blazers Media Network podcaster this weekend. I will wait.
I know, exactly. We will say it is the first goal a member of the Men in Blazers media has scored in the Premier League ever, we should say, Rog. But in the end, City make it 4 wins from 4.
I'm trying to remember if Tyler Adams has ever scored. I think he had one that was offside, which we've had turned into a golden bust and put outside our offices. But every bump, and I have to marvel at Manchester City for this. Every time they face a challenge in this quest to 4-peat, they just seem to roll on. Invincibly. Jack Grealish not in City's matchday squad due to a thigh injury. In comes Jeremy Doku, latest young Belgian to add to a legacy of Walloon, or is it Flemish greatness at City? Arrived for $71 million from Rennes last Thursday. Won't have had a single session under the still absent Pep, still grappling with back injury. But Doku introduced himself by savaging poor Anthony Robinson early doors. Fulham held firm admirably. I've got to say, Fulham were game, considering they had their own deadline day challenges. Paulinho exited to Bayern Munich. Dude took pictures with the Bayern jersey. Then the deal didn't go through. Can you imagine him just slinking back into the locker room like, lads, I was joking. Joking, I tell you. How do you think that goes, Davo?
Yeah, well, at least it was a foreign team. By the way, on Grealish, I'm hearing it wasn't a thigh injury. I think it's a new leg muscle, which Grealish got by doing leg day 2 days in a row that they hadn't previously recognised.
You think Jack Grealish has got a muscle that is like advanced for humankind? Like some people don't have tonsils anymore or appendix. You think he's humanly evolved to have leg muscles?
Yeah, he's getting new thigh muscles that people haven't seen before. Oh, you would, wouldn't you?
I would. I have. But, I've got to say, watching this game, there was a raven we got in-game from GFOP, Adam M. in Portland, Maine, beautiful part of the country, who wrote, "I'm watching our away fixture at the Etihad, and I can't help but think about the notion of bonus points being awarded in cricket and rugby for things like number of runs or tries. It feels like Fulham should get a point for holding City scoreless in the first 20 minutes, 2 points if we muster 40% of the possession at the half, maybe 3 points if we get Haaland to pull out his man bun in frustration over the lack of touches at half-time. It would give us non-big clubs a reason to watch that game and not just open an app hoping for a loss by less than 4 goals. Davo, this is an idea that you can surely run with."
I like the idea of the bonusing, though, being nothing to do with the actual football. I like it for being the volume and quality of singing by your away fans. I think that's good. I think your manager's outfit should get get something.
I've long maintained that the manager's outfit we should be able to judge like in ice skating, right? Manager's outfit should get style points. I mean, that's rational, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. If we're going to have a shot clock in football, we may as well credit managers' outfits.
I've just realised that if that happens, Sean Dyche will get us exactly 0 points with his current sideline look, which has been described by many as Uber Black driver. 5 stars.
I don't know. I'm not sure that Sean Dyche should be a 5-star Uber Black driver. I think there's a little bit too much verbal abuse
like the
for that.
Feet on the back, touching the back of the seat, would he? Feet down, please.
Yeah, that'd be a lot. He wouldn't like your bum on the back of the seat. He wouldn't like anything there.
Oh God. Let's work on that and keep going. I've got to say, City, Foden again, influential. Open the scoring on 31 minutes. So you would have got that point, Adam M. A Haaland Shas leaving Alvarez open to tap in. 14 goals in 14 home starts for the Argentine unsung hero. But just 2 minutes and 1 second later, possibly the goal of the season. Fulham levelled the score off a set piece. Slot pounced upon by 35-year-old Missouri Maldini. Tim Ream with the tap-in. American Haaland made a very easy finish look very hard. Davo, I don't know what your dominant emotion watching this was. I was just so happy for Tim Ream's grandchildren who were watching along.
I mean, look, even in slow motion, the man was a blonde man-bunned blur, Rog. The way he broke. I mean, all the City defenders, the goalkeeper, they're calling for offside because they think, how can he be there so quickly in that position, the last player before the goal line?
Yeah, with 2 hip replacements. How did he get there?
It was a blur. He moved there so fast.
Yeah.
He moved there so fast. He almost broke VAR, Rog, I think. And I'm sure the referee's watch was vibrating for the speed that he moved at. And then he had a lot to do. He had a lot to do at the end. That was some finish. Where
would Kai Havertz have deposited that ball?
Well, it would have gone right past him. I don't think he would have hit it. I think that he managed to... The swerve he put on the ball, Rog, it was deceiving. Goalkeeper think it's going to one place and ended up going to the other side. It had swerve. It had dip.
It had the plum.
It had everything.
It had everything. It had a plum. I thought it was a stylish finish. I was just wondering when Neil Maupay would somehow manage to make that go out for a throw-in. GFOP at Richie Jacob 625 tweeted, Puskas inbound. Yes. GFOP at BBraid98 added, my favourite thing is to listen to Spanish language commentary when Tim Ream is playing. They call him Tim Rim, which I just love. Tim Rim sounds like an amazing footballer. Tim Rim. But Fulham's back, ultimately broken by the award of a goal. So bloody terrible, so harsh, it was almost just psychotic. Ake got the ball from a corner, tapped it home. VAR proceeded to quietly check it because Manuel Akanji was standing right in the middle of the 6-yard box. It was dictionary definition interfering with play. The Chen had to jump over the ball to get out of the way of it, let it go through his legs. Was utterly in Bernd Leno's line of vision. Fulham boss Marco Silva seething. Fulham players looked like they were going to walk off the field. Silva later said about the VAR official, anyone who's played football would be 100% sure to disallow the goal. Even Erling Haaland said with an honest heart post-game, I think it was offside as well. I feel bad for them. I'd be fuming. David, how do you explain it other than just that VAR proper hates cottagers?
I mean, we have seen some remarkable admissions in the last couple of weeks. I think it was Mike Dean who was the VAR official. Remember that game Tottenham-Chelsea last season when Cucurella's hair was pulled in the corner, and Mike Dean admitted that he saw it, but he didn't want to embarrass his mate who was the on-field referee.
Fair enough.
And draw his attention to it. I mean, it's somewhat. But VAR is meant to be a robot. We want VAR to act like a robot. We don't want it to act with all of the human weaknesses of men, and particularly men who decide to be Premier League referees, which is a different breed of man. Let's face it.
It does feel like a different level of subjectivity. Augmenting the referee's instant subjectivity with a more refined, more considered kind of subjectivity rather than the swift objectivity which is meant to deposit. And it was an agony because it did feel like game over in this instance. City unbeaten in the last 46 Premier League games when they've led at half time, an incredible record. And after that, it went as we imagined it would. It went a bit Burning Man for Fulham. Haaland proceeded to blast, penalty, slap his way to a hat-trick, completed in the 95th minute. His immense 7th hat-trick in just over a season. The only way I can describe it, Haaland makes the Premier League look like Messi makes MLS look like. 50 goal involvements for Erling, 41 goals, 9 assists in just 39 Premier League games, Davo. Fastest player to reach 50 goals and assists in the competition. I mean, we talk about him every week with just a sense of breathtaking lore. I mean, he is the giant of the game. God, he's just 5-1 beatdown. Again, City seem to be, still, Davo, they still seem to be in second gear. That's what's terrifying about them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had a guy walked up to me at my tennis club yesterday and said, "Oh, did you see Liverpool?" He's everything he sees in the world is through Liverpool's eyes. You see, Liverpool, it's like we're going to go straight through. We're going to go win the league. And I was like, "Have you seen Manchester City play? It's like very tough to bet against Manchester City before the season. At this point, at any point, they just seem incredibly dominant. They look even better than they did. And this is without KDB, Rog. This is without arguably their best player.
This is after they won 5-1 post-game. The questions were about the uncharacteristic passes going astray, shots missed. Haaland said, with truth and to be honest, horror. He said, every year it's like this at the club. We start a bit late and a bit sloppy because we play right until the last game of every season because we are the best club. It's how it is. We will only get better and better from here. That's after a 5-1 win, listeners. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Incredible stuff. Okay, another hat-trick in this game, Rog. Burnley 2, Tottenham 5. Big Ange ball makes its way to the Shires and leaves the Clarets with a little Postecoglou in their pants. It was actually the home team that took the lead via some fourth-minute liquid football capped by South African Lyle Foster. But then Ange's mob clapped back a Sonny hat-trick, as well as a blast from Christian Romero. What a goal that was. And a James Madders curling effort. Another amazing goal. Do the business here. Rog, after a draw in their first game, Spurs have won 3 on the bounce and entered the first international break of the season, trailing only the aforementioned best team on the planet, Manchester City.
We have said in recent weeks, how would Ange's Tottenham act when they got a swift kick in the teeth? You know, how would they, without Daddy Harry Kane, face up to adversity? And so we saw, after 4 minutes in, Burnley unleashing some JJ Watt liquid football, culminating in Lyle Foster netting his second in 2 games. Spurs fans clenched their bums. Under Mourinho or Conte, they knew they were about to watch at best, this would have been a 1-1, just a damp squib of a game. The truth is, in past seasons, everything about Spurs in moments of panic was just fling the ball to Harry and pray that he could make crap happen. But Ange Ball Spurs is a game with so many weapons. Maddison and Son in this one, sparkling all that was good. Ange told me when he came on, he said, football's a simple game. It's about scoring more goals than your opponent, mate. And in a wide open game, both teams tried to play wide open football. Burnley just did not have the ability, especially across the back, to do that. Whenever they made a mistake, Spurs were primed to surge. Romero scored. Solomon rolled the ball to Sonny, who has 8 this season. Utterly 8. Seems strangely lost without his Harry. But that chip for that first goal, David, it was cooler than the polar bear's toenails.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were talking is that, every weekend in the Premier League, there is a game not involving one of your teams that just puts a smile on your face, that just it just brings you joy. And not to take anything away from Man City and Arsenal, who had amazing moments, and they really impressed me, both of those teams this weekend. But the way that Tottenham play football, the nature of the way they came back in this game, and just the nature of that goal, that finish, that little chip, that, literally players' arms, they were trying to handball deliberately, but they couldn't stop it because of the direction it was going. And everything about this performance, everything about this goal scorer, everything about that finish, everything about this manager just puts a smile on my face. It is impossible not to love. You mentioned earlier, is like, you have to not love football to enjoy this kind of stuff. It was beautiful to watch.
The truth was, Burnley had promised coming into this season they would try to maintain the kind of football, that open football, that optimistic football, that buccaneering football that had earned them 100 points, over 100 points in the Championship, Vinny K ball. But the challenge here, it was really revealed when you are made of inferior components, other teams will just prey on every opportunity. And Spurs were so clinical. Sonny playing centrally, thrived, banging them in as if he was still angry with Antonio Conte. Removed one of, and this exercise, one of the outstanding worries of the season, which was the absence of Sonny's clinicality, the absence of his joy, the absence of related happy moments on Korean sports television commentating. James Maddison, it should be said, swaggered, lashed home some wonder thunder. The only game where it could have gone better in this game would have been if Richarlison trotted on and found a reason to smile again. But a fantastic start to the season. I've just got to raise everything to Ange. Spurs end this opening phase in second place, 3 wins and a draw. New boy Brennan Johnson still to bed in. It's going to be magnificent watching him play across the front line. They have Arsenal away and Liverpool at home in 2 of their first 3 games back for the international break. So I'll just say, savour every second, Spurs fans, and let's talk after them.
Yeah, and I got to say, Rog, Burnley sit bottom of the league, but they're a pretty good team. They play some pretty tidy football. I know it may seem just ridiculously attacking at times when they're going to be certainly, fighting relegation all season, but this is a good football team who Tottenham
I said
beat.
to JJ Watt, I said, you'll get 6 points against Everton. You'll have to find the other 34 elsewhere.
Well, like I said, there are things that bring smiles to your face. There are things that absolutely take away your will to live. And that's how I feel reporting this one. Chelsea 0, Nottingham Forest 1. Old Matty Clean Sheets marches on Stamford Bridge and pitches a shutout. May not be the headline around the world, but it certainly is the headline on this podcast. Just below Tim Ream's wonder strike from the amazing goal in that Fulham Man City game. The game's lone goal came in the 48th minute when substitute Anthony Elanga found his way behind the Chelsea defence, helped a lot by Moises Caicedo, helped a lot by Conor Gallagher, helped a lot by Thiago Silva, and opened up those Malmo hips and slotted home a first Forest goal for the summer signing from Manchester United. Forest have won 2 of their first 4 and are in 9th place. Things at Chelsea, Rog, not quite as rosy. I know you have some deep insight from the fortress.
Amortize that, Davo. $1.28 billion have been spunked on, I think it's 31 permanent signings since Clearlake Capital swooped in to Stamford Bridge. That's both numbers are astonishing, as is the number of these incomings that are below their, it's almost a creed for them. We only sign players below the age of 25. And there is no doubt that Chelsea have almost overnight, in a way we've never seen before in football, constructed one of the finest, raw, young, talent-soaked squads in the game. But youth in football is such a bloody overvalued trait when it's a squad's dominant one. And yes, if you're an investor, it's thrilling to see so much money to be made in potential future assets to sell on. But when you're a coach, Pochettino say, who knows he must win and must win now, it's fragile, it's complex, it's combustible. It's raw material, which is just so confusing to handle. And I say that after Manchester City's gem, 21-year-old Cole Palmer, arrived, became the 13th player to move in the transfer window. And I wonder, David, how do you think Poch feels being buried alive with so much young flesh? Chelsea spent more this summer than in his 11 transfer windows combined at Spurs, 551 million to 522 million. That's just utterly bewildering. 22 of the 32 senior Chelsea players have joined this squad in the past year. All of these stats are insane. Most are under the age of 22. 20 have 6-year contracts or longer. And as we saw against Forest, this is a squad that's built more to think about burn rate and being champions of amortization than about gelling a convincing attack.
Yeah, and look, before I go on the full attack, Rog, let me just say, yes, they sold more players than any team has ever sold in a transfer window and made more revenue than any team has ever made. That was remarkable, but their net spend is still twice as large as any other team in football. They do have young players. They are on good contracts, Rog. None of these young players are being overpaid. They've got very good deals if they happen to be the best in the world. But to a lot of Chelsea fans we've already talked about Declan Rice, former Chelsea Academy. I'm sure we'll talk about Dominic Solanke, former Chelsea Academy. I'm sure we'll talk about Billy Gilmore, former Chelsea Academy. If you go across Europe, Tammy Abraham, Tomori, like the world of football is filled with former Chelsea Academy graduates. We had all of these young players for free, Rog, for free, some of the best young players. And when you go man for man, comparing these Chelsea Academy players to the players who we've got in and what they've become now they've been able to play minutes at other teams, I got to tell you, the squads don't look that different. They don't look that different in terms of quality. So
I love it. Chelsea, a gift to the world.
But it's a gift to the world. So it was one thing if we're spending all the money to go and bring in these incredibly experienced players who are going to go and definitely score goals and definitely win. But we've basically replaced the academy players with other academy players from other academies who are not proven, instead of giving our players the minutes. So we've just given up to everybody. Right now, Brighton are like, who needs Moises Caicedo? We've got Billy Gilmore, punching them in from 45 yards. I mean, it's difficult for Chelsea fans, I think, proper Chelsea fans to deal with a lot of the arguments that are being made by the management. Having said that, I feel for Poch. Really, your question was about what's it like. Yes, you're absolutely right. Two things can be true. These can be really good buys. These can be really good players, but they also may not be ready to go and play in the Premier League yet. The only reason the average age of the squad still looks so high is that Thiago Silva is pushing 40 years old at this point.
Yeah, the average age, by the way, even with him, the average age of the squad is 22.5.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. They are just so young, and it's just hard to us. And Raheem, who is getting into his late 20s too, is a slightly older player.
Well, that's your veteran leadership. I mean, that's what you saw in this game. You saw a strong start, repelled by a robust Forest, who were playing themselves without Brendan Johnson for the first time. Scored that goal, a one-year nutmegging Thiago Silva, your veteran leader, slipping Alana, a player who had not scored in something like 43 games. But his finish was lethal. It was clinical. It was excellent. Tucked it into the corner. And then you did see, yes, you have beautiful Raz Sterling, who I adore. Veteran leadership, feeling pretty snubbed by England at the moment.
Yeah, of course.
And other than Thiago Silva, the two of them are it. And it's that you see that makes this Chelsea team so lopsided and erratic. It's the callowness of youth. Chelsea had so much possession, but lacked the guile, lacked the idea how to cut that Forest backline open. It is one of the best young squads in the world. That is inarguable. But in moments of high stress, you need veteran heads who can use that experience to turn games. Frankly, Chelsea looked lost at sea, just running into blind alleys, falling over in desperate attempts to get penalties, blasting the ball wildly. In the Nottingham goal, got to say, huge love for Matt Turner. First ever clean sheet in the Premier League, coming up down the stretch, pretty big. A lot of the Forest fans chanting USA, 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 which I love. Raz slipped in Nick Jackson, who chose to blast wildly over with the goal gaping at his mercy. Gent has scored. This is symbolic, I think, of what you're watching, Davo. Nick Jackson scored one goal from an XG of 3.65 this season. Really, you're looking at the only thing younger than Chelsea in football is a 1877 Cars for Kids commercial. And that's close.
Yeah, and the money is dubious in that one as well. It is, yeah. So one of my godsons wrote to me, "We're really good at possessing the ball," to which I responded, "Until we're not." Until we're not, like, because the possession is pointless, Roger. It's just pointless. Yes, we'll do well against maybe the top teams because we'll make it difficult for them to play football in the middle thirds of the pitch. But at either end, that defensive mistake um, between Gallagher and Caicedo that gave up the goal, and then just their, really you should be able to give up one goal to Nottingham Forest and still win when you're Chelsea at home. But just the inability to create chances, the slowness of possession out of the back, just how long we take to sort of get the ball into any movement upfield, it's painful. Poch, yes, you're right. He's been cursed with all these young players. It's difficult. He's telling everybody to trust the process. This is, Arteta has almost ruined your ability to get on a manager because of the whole trust the process thing working out in his case. But I think it's more than a process over here. He's got to find some way to get a group of players to do something with the ball, and you can feel the confidence draining out of many of them. So I think it's going to be a very long season again at Chelsea. So many bright spots during preseason, Rog, but it's why we don't read too much into preseason. Now Poch has fallen into that 3 at the back, 5 defenders, 2 holding midfielders, not a lot of attacking players, not a lot of attacking ideas, terrible set-piece delivery, terrible set-piece defending. It's very tough to win Premier League matches with those realities.
75% possession, just 2 shots on goal. We've got to acknowledge, huge win for Nottingham Forest, who won just once last season on the road. That was a massive, massive challenge. They will draw so much strength from this. Poch, so much bants in the wake of this. Chelsea have signed more players this summer than they've won Premier League games since the takeover. Just a real agony. The worst possible way for Poch to stumble into this international break. It must be crazy for him to watch Ange resurrect Spurs effortlessly where he was, and just so many Chelsea failures be exiled to AC Milan, only to watch them collectively soar. I do need to know one more thing about Forest themselves, a team who love a deadline day. I think 6 new bodies in. I've got to be honest, not happy personally to see Divock Origi back in the Premier League too soon. I've got a prediction, Davo. Gent will score once all season, and it'll be a goal fired from between his butt cheeks against Everton. It is known.
Well, I'm sure Callum Hudson-Odoi will have a hat-trick against Chelsea when we go to Forest, Rog. So I'll be with you in Solidarność at that moment. A quick reminder, Rog, about the Matt Turner pod that we mentioned a little earlier. It should hit this very pod feed Friday. Can't wait for that. Okay, Liverpool 3, Aston Villa 0. Routine win. Makes its way back to Anfield, courtesy of Dominic Soboslai's Hungarian hammer, a Matty Cash own goal, and a goal from that man that not even $190 million can pry from Merseyside yet, Mo Salah. Rog, it's all coming up, Klopp. They've got 10 points from 12 to start the season. It feels like an achievement already, and they just keep cruising.
It's a stunning Liverpool performance, one in which they overcame the absence of both first-choice centre-backs. Van Dijk suspended, Konate injured. There's that hubbub about Mo Salah going to Saudi Arabia in return for fleet of gold trucks filled with cash. An ambitious Aston Villa. Both teams looking to make it 3 straight wins to crash that top 4 ahead of the international break. But Liverpool were a class above. Klopp, 300th Premier League game for Liverpool, called it as the top game, the best for a long time. I can't remember the last time we were that convincing. The mix in possession between control and direction was close to perfect. And it's true, within 3 minutes, Liverpool punched a slow-starting, sloppy, sleepy Villa in the face. The press forced the corner, the ball bounced to the edge of the area, and Szoboszlai just thrashed it off the turf, 6 feet high and rising. And wow, first goal for him. And you felt that the way the fans received him, that joy back, Davo, you can tell they just love everything about him.
Yeah, they found a great player there, the Hungarian skipper, Rog. He's a superb footballer and has just fit into this Liverpool squad just seamlessly, immediately. And he's just got everything. He tackles well, he moves forward well, he makes great passes, and now we realise he can finish as well and hit bangers. Tim Ream level bangers,
Yeah, it
Rog.
was it was other than the Tim Ream goal, which I
Yeah.
think everyone around the world just objectively would say was just like another level. This one, I mean, this goal was a goal Stevie Gerrard would score. It was a goal. I mean, Hendo could thrash a couple like it. God bless Hendo. God, poor Hendo needs PR team help a bit right now, but that's a story for another time. Villa, God bless them. They tried to make a fist of it, but then Diego Carlos limped off Leon Bailey on, and it felt a bit like the Newcastle game all over again. One goal down, key centre half out. Cruel buzzsaw of injuries for Villa early this season, and that midfield just could not live with Liverpool's speed of play, speed of thought. God, it was amazing to watch a Liverpool who've not lost since last October now at Anfield. Jesse Marsh's leads were the team to do it. It never looked likely. Mo Salah slammed the ball across off Nunez. The post and Matty Cash Pickforded it home. Nunez in his first start of the season actually clipped the bar again. Later, felt like dude is back to factory default settings, and those settings are marked perpetual chaos. That man is a human for loco, but Mo Salah did not err when given a close range stab home. Of course, he scored 2 days after Liverpool rejected an astronomical bid from Saudi Arabia, who has said that they want Mo Salah is the greatest athlete to ever emerge from the Middle East, and what a jewel he would be for the league, a symbol in that region. They are, according to the English papers, set to offer again 250 million, Davo. $250 million for a 31-year-old. And the Saudi transfer window does not close until the end of this week. I don't know what you make of it. I would honestly, there is a number. There's a number that the Saudi Arabia League will pay. There's no doubt they want him very badly. It's got to be a number that FSG would bite your arm off. And I don't understand why Salah's agent or Salah himself doesn't knock down interest if there's clearly no interest there. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, I mean, look, and I think situationally, for an Egyptian player, this is a slightly different situation going to Saudi Arabia than it is for pretty much every other player who's gone over there to go and play, Rog. I think it's just a different situation, and I agree that I think it's still very much firing on. Saudi Arabia, the amount of money. I have friends who have been approached about doing business over there, and they want to see their sort of business plans and their projections, and they don't care about income. They only care about how much money they get to deploy. They just want to deploy capital because they just have so much of it sitting under those sand dunes. And they really want to make this league work. They want to make sport work. They want to westernize their society really, really, really badly. And I think they will come with more money until, FSG and Liverpool and Mo Salah have to make an enormous decision. And it won't be easy to say no. The answer still could be no, but I don't think they're going to make it easy for them.
As I said, summer registration for the Saudi Pro League ends September the 7th. This could be a season-defining couple of days for Liverpool, but this was an immense win. 3 points, 3 goals, clean sheet, 1 twinge. Trent Alexander-Arnold undergoing a scan to determine the extent of a hamstring injury that he sustained. But the big plus, that Liverpool midfield assembled at speed. They didn't plan for the Saudi acquisition of their entire heart of the squad, but it already looks so bloody polished. Individuals look immense. The collective look immense. McAllister magnificent. Soboslai just a pulsating presence. Ryan Gravenberch still to come. Mo Salah and his future, obviously the storyline of the week. But my lord, Villa are a very good team. This was an off day, maybe. They look like injuries have undermined their desire to go next level, but Liverpool extend their unbeaten run to 15.
Yeah, and in that battle behind Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, all looking fantastic and looking to lock up the top 4. Brighton 3, Newcastle 1, the Premier League's trendiest communal living facility, get a visit from McMansion enthusiasts as they deliver victory in convincing fashion. And it's that Sally Rooney main character in football boots, Ireland's Evan Ferguson. He's just a baby who pumped in a hat-trick to win this for the Seagulls. He's an absolute unit, Rog. He's younger than my daughter JJ, and when he gets going, look out. He also managed to continue to dampen the mood on Tyneside, where the Toon have now lost 3 straight.
What a week for Newcastle, landing in the Champions League group of death. Eddie Howe and his Piff mob headed on that long march down to the south coast. And the Amex cauldron to witness a Brighton still smarting from being moised last week. Slapped 3-1 by West Ham, despite dominating the game with 79% possession. But as life-destroying as Newcastle feels symbolically playing their now traditional Saudi Arabia green away kit, Brighton are just utterly bloody life-affirming. They lose a player. They lose many players. They simply uncover another gem. I'd never watched 90 minutes of their goalkeeper, Bart Verbruggen, young Dutch gent, age 21. I think he played a handful of games only for Anderlecht. But here, he was just pinging the ball around with his feet as if he was Edison's son. They outplayed, they smashed, they humiliated a listing and suddenly limited-looking team who made a ferocious pressing start, but then wilted, subdued by little Billy Gilmore and Pascal Gross. Their intelligence, their determination, they sprung the break, they preyed on mistakes in dangerous parts of the field, fed Evan Ferguson. Teenage kicks, screamed Peter Drury, deep-cut classic Irish band undertones reference to add to the wonder of his first 2 strikes. I mean, Davo, he later had a third with an immense deflection. But Jenner scored in this one with 3 of his first 4 shots. In this weekend, the hat-tricks. Seeing an 18-year-old step up and score 24 Premier League games only, 10 goals. Yeah. I mean, this is a prodigy. This is what we're seeing at Brighton. This is not just like, wow, this was a nice hat-trick by a young player. This was a prodigy really announcing himself to the world.
Yeah, 19 years old. Roger, which is just amazing. Sorry, 18 years old, I believe, not 19 until October. Just an amazing, amazing footballer. You know, so significant for Ireland. You know, that national team who've needed a striker ever since Robbie Keane, you know, finally aged out of the game. And
age 52.
You know, Ireland, what an amazing football nation. Both of us have, like, you know, seen them play around the world. They're just amazing. They're fans. And now there's so much hope for Irish fans around this legitimate goal scorer. And this is sneakily the biggest story in the Premier League this season is the emergence of Evan Ferguson and how significant he could be in the race at the top of the table.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to Chelsea in January.
Exactly.
Evan, listen to me, Ev. You'll be on loan at AC Milan within 3 seasons, baby, but you'll be all the richer for it. Just jump on it. Don't ask questions. In all sincerity, what a prodigy from Ireland's legendary talent factory, St. Kevin's Boys Club in Dublin, which produced the likes of like national icon Damien Duff, just an intense winger. Arsenal 70s icon Liam Brady in generations past. Young Premier League juggernaut star in the making. Couldn't be at a better club than under De Zerbi in this moment. But there's something about how he carries himself that just dazzles. Just a maturity, a mental focus that makes his ceiling seem so bloody high. And when he subbed off for James Milner, beautiful moment, immense joy around the Amex. The 18-year-old who was not even born yet when James Milner made his Premier League debut, just symbolically that footballing circle of life. And it was magnificent to witness. Slightly less magnificent, Newcastle, 3 consecutive losses. The joy, the confidence, the swagger in that opening game destruction of Aston Villa now totally gone. As they seek to maintain some kind of balance while they're introducing Tonali into that midfield 3. That's football. 1 minute, you are just staring at the heavens, the next, you're just glaring at the abyss. And Eddie Howe said, there was a range of emotions going through me, but it's best to keep them to myself. He's going to have a lot of thinking, Davo, through this international break. 2 weeks to stew, work out whom to drop and plot before he returns, because it's a whole new world for Newcastle. Champions League week for them, an away trip to Milan waits.
Yeah, and the first little bump in Eddie Howe's tenure over there, and a major bump. You know, not sure those owners will have a lot of patience if that team starts to falter.
Yeah, I've got to say one quick note on Newcastle. The PIF, who took them over, Public Investment Fund, nothing to do with the Saudi state.
Nothing,
we know that.
Nothing at all.
Nothing, zero,
nothing,
right?
Nothing.
But this week, David, wait for this. This has got to be coincidence, right? And completely unrelated. Newcastle United St. James's Park was chosen to host 2 international friendly fixtures for the Saudi Arabia men's national team.
Oh, I thought you were going to say they were going to be falcon racing going on over there. No.
Their nickname is the Green Falcons.
Okay.
But they just chose out of all the stadia in Europe that they could have chosen.
Whoa.
The Saudi Arabian national team decided to face Costa Rica and South Korea up in Newcastle. And when you learn this and you see, the away jerseys, you're just looking at willful blindness.
Yeah. They love a Newcastle. Okay, Luton 1, West Ham 2, the first Premier League game at Kenilworth Road, and the Hatters faithful were in fine fettle, but inconvenienced by the Friday night fixture as it kept him up well past his bedtime. David Moyes unleashed a can of irons on Luton, headers from Jared Bowen and Kurt Zuma, once again from an amazing Ward-Prowse set piece, put the East Londoners out in front before Mads Anderson gave the Luton fans a moment to remember, scoring their first ever Premier League goal and sending their fans into raptures. But the story here is West Ham, Rog. They've won 3 of 4. They're still undefeated. And for a brief period Friday evening, they were top of the table.
Hatters versus Hammers. Scrappy game in the smallest stadium in Premier League history. Luton Town in their first top flight season since 1992. They're in the 5th tier as recently as 2014. 4 promotions in 10 joy-filled seasons. Finally introduced the world to the Kenilworth Road, 118-year-old venue, so tiny, so outdated. It required a $13 million renovation just to get it up to code for the Premier League standard of play. But it still remains totally idiosyncratic, totally old school in its charm. Stadium's most iconic feature is the visitors' entrance on Oak Road, which sees away fans walk through a small entry gate, jammed in there between a row of terraced homes, before climbing a metal staircase that lifts them clear of the neighbours' backyards. David, when you watch that, you're just like, this is a must-visit venue, right, for American fans. Proper football ground, which just looks like it smells as football stadia used to, a spilt beer, pie fumes, and human urine. It's football as it should be.
I don't know. Having been to Luton, Rog, I'm not going to recommend to our American listeners that that's a place that is a can't miss. Go to Palace, go up to Goodison, Rog, but I don't know. I don't really know about Kenilworth Road, but yes, sell it. I know you're obviously in the pay of the Luton Tourist Board.
Who doesn't love the smell of human urine? I'm really working hard to sell it. I'll say West Ham in this one, no mercy. God, yeah, 3 straight losses now for poor, despite a late flurry, Luton, who actually should have got a late penalty to tie this one up. But this is a West Ham story. At this stage last season, West Ham had failed to muster a point, collected only 4, I think, from their opening 7 games. Now, 10 points from their first 4 matches, 4th place, and their fans reveling it all, just leaving Kenilworth Road by chanting, "We could see you in the bath," to the backs of the tiny terrace houses, where several residents were no doubt having a late night poo, hidden only by their bathroom curtains. That's why we watch.
Okay, Crystal Palace 3, Wolves 2. Your pal, Roy Hodgson's Chargers win a 5-goal second-half thriller, and Palace, who had scored just twice in their first 3, eclipsed that total in the second 45 behind a pair of goals from Odsonne Edouard, sandwiched around an Eze goal. Low-key, incredible first touch from him on that goal, Rog. And the Palace, they've taken 7 points out of a possible 12. Don't look now, but they're in 7th place.
God, Wolves starting to have a pallor of the sick man about them. They are a Xerox of what they've been in our imagination. Julian Lopetegui, gone. Ruben Neves, gone. Mateus Nunes, now at City. Financial panic setting in, adding to just the fraught sense of chaos. But here, Palace, Hodgson, God love, turning Edouard into a focused poacher. But that second goal, Eze, Davo, moving at pace, carrying the ball with a cheeky flip, and then just a hyper-intelligently clinical finish. That man, more than any other, come season end, I think there should be an award for best player in the bottom half of the table. I have no doubt Eze will be it, David.
I think there's a good thing. I was trying to think which Chelsea player might contend with him, Rog, but I don't know. I don't know that we've got a single player who's that good, who is now on loan. Yeah, amazing finish, and being challenged at the same time to make that finish, and doing it, around some incredibly close defence. And great feelings at Selhurst Park, Rog. Great feelings around the club. I'm going to go and see them in a couple of weeks' time. Can't wait for it. Brentford 2, Bournemouth 2. The Bees versus the Cherries in the Premier League Cuddly Classico. Matthias Jensen put the home side ahead, but the visitors stormed back, taking the lead via goals from Dom Solanke and David Brooks. But in the 94th minute, a moment of genius from Brian Mbumo, who took a Nathan Collins long ball and brought it under control while spinning and putting himself through on goal before steering home the equaliser. Just an incredible piece of skill, one that denies Andoni Iraola his first Premier League win.
Brentford remain unbeaten on the season, but only just there. Bournemouth will draw strength from this point. They've had a tough start to the season, results-wise, but also, to be candid, schedule heavyweight opponent-wise. And it doesn't get any easier when they return Chelsea, Brighton and Arsenal to come. I'll just say, every David Brooks goal feels like it is cut from sheer joy. After that Gent beat stage 2 Hodgkin lymphoma, it's life-affirming. But in this one, as you mentioned, Mbumo, just third minute of time added on. Go and find this goal if you didn't see it on social media. That first touch to control and the spin to destroy. But the touch is just a stunning caress of the ball. Simply put, it's the difference between the Premier League and other leagues, other lesser leagues. When I watch that, all I can think of, Davo, is that finally, after listening to the song, I finally understood what Marvin Gaye was singing about when he wrote Sexual Healing.
Yes, there was something sexual about that goal. And was there something sexual about this? Not sure. Sheffield United 2,
God,
Everton
there was a hip-hop star called MC Paul Barman in the early days of hip-hop. He was a Jewish a hip-hop star. He had a line that said, "If you want to have sex with me, get ready for bad sex." So if there was something sexual about this,
it was that.
It was in the MC Paul Barman kind of way.
Fair. Well, this was a lot of life for you to live first thing on a Saturday morning as both these sides battled for their first points of the season. Your mob shot out in front. The Blades then went ahead. Your mate, Danjuma, levelled it. And at the end, Jordan Pickford was splayed out like a Mackin spatchcock chicken, making incredible save after incredible save. Some arms, legs, heads, chest to preserve the draw. Rog, you got a big boy point. You got your first big boy goals. The floor is yours.
Another weekend, another far too early in the season, 6-point relegation battle. 3 losses. Let's recount how we got here: to Fulham, Aston Villa, to Wolves. We were yet to score a big boy goal. And we had to drag our carcass up to Sheffield United. Similarly doomed, but it was early in the morning. I was on the coffee, I was on the beer, I was like two-fisting, ready to rip off the weekend band-aid of doom. So early doors for this one. Honestly, it was less a game of football. Felt more like being forced to watch Ralph Wiggum have a knife fight with Eeyore. Neither Everton nor the newly promoted Blades had picked up a single bloody point. I put my youngest son, Oz, to bed Friday night. And he said, and it almost broke me, I'm not going to lie, David, his last words before he went to sleep, in his Everton shirt, he said, "Dad, Beto Golden Boot campaign starts tomorrow, Dad." Talking about a new striker from Portugal. Davo, you are in, because we all had that naivete as kids, right? That optimism, this whatever is in the face of proof, just that surging optimism. Is that what made you go, "Oh, that"?
Yeah, I mean, just this sweet boy, and just his dreams, his posters, his belief. Yeah, football will just break your heart, Rog.
Yeah, it'll kick all out of him. I swallowed the words, "Don't be so bloody stupid, son," which I did want to have. I didn't want to say. I just gave him a weary, watery smile and just said, he goes, "Dad, Beto Golden Boot campaign starts tomorrow." And I just said, "Good Beto best, son. Good Beto best," which is about the best I could manage in that. That really, God, it haunts me, that story. Everton didn't let us down. They played headless crap, coughing up the ball constantly. United knew that our midfielders were primed to pass to absolutely no one at all, and they were ready for that. I mean, no one. Genuinely, we specialise in bobbling the ball off shin straight to the opponents. But then, Davo, we scored. Misdirection, outswinger corner, scrap, panic, in swoops, Dookie. Had the time to thigh it and then slap it in. More slop. Shrugging off the shirt pulls to slap deliriously home. Decore, who'd scored our delirious, life-saving, the best ever Premier League goal that's ever been scored. But this one, it was terrible to look at, but the relief, on one level, It was like being so unbelievably constipated of just finding a way through. But I